It feels as though there's a lot of competition within the watch space, even in the sub $100 category. You have your Pagani Design, your Tandorios, San Martins of the world, mostly AliExpress brands. So it's still interesting to take a look at who's entering into that space new as a brand and what watches are they offering and how they may differ from what's already out there. WishDoIt is today's sponsor for this video. They sent me a watch in. I don't have to send it back. And the only thing that they kindly asked me to do was put a link in the description to where you could purchase the watch. Now that's not an affiliate link. I make nothing from you guys making that purchase. And I do implore you guys to purchase responsibly. Don't let just this review be the deciding factor. Do your own research, please. So the first thing that strikes you when you're deciding if a watch is interesting or not is the dial itself and the total design package. And you guys saw some images of the watch already. So the second thing, most importantly in my opinion, is the fit. If it fits on your wrist like how you like to have it fit on wrist, then the watch can now take its next steps into possibly going into your collection. So for reference, my wrist is a 7¼ inch wrist, and I'm gonna throw some specifications up here so you guys can see exactly what the dimensions are to the watch instead of just rambling them off. So the movement inside the watch is the NH35. Now, in my experience, I haven't gotten an NH35 that had a crazy amount of tolerance to it. Now, there is a large gap to what you can get in that movement, but for the most part, when I throw this up into a time graph, I usually get better results than what it could possibly be. So the NH35 is definitely a movement that I feel is acceptable. It's a workhorse, and we see this movement used a lot when it comes to this price category. And if you were to purchase that movement separately, that would be around a $25 to $30 cost. So the fact that this is coming in at less than $100 already pushes things in the right way, at least when it comes to value for money. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet. And that is something when it comes to watches of this caliber, you usually find the most faults on, and that's pretty much going to be the case here. So it does have solid mill end links. It's flush at the lug attachment. It has friction fit pins to the links. It has an old style brushed, linked, polished on the sides profile. It's gonna be a 20mm down to a 16mm taper to the clasp. At the clasp itself, we're looking at 18.2mm by 50mm in length. It's a friction fit clasp with a fold over security engraved with the company logo. It also has a brushed and polished finish. It has 5 tooled micro adjustments. And I recommend when you guys try to make the adjustment on this clasp, instead of just pushing one side and trying to slide it, or even I try to tool that squeeze both sides of that pin to make that sliding adjustment, I find it easier just to push one pin, fold it over, pull it out completely, and then find where your fit is going to work for you, and then just put it back into the clasp itself. Now, I had some difficulties making adjustments to the links itself. One pin had somewhat of crust on it. I'm not sure if that was like a Loctite residue that was on there, but when I pulled that last pin out to one of the links, I noticed that it just had this buildup on it, and that was a little off-putting. Now, the clasp isn't that sharp on the sides. It's actually pretty smooth, but when it came to the ends of the clasp, that's where I found it to be a little sharp, and you definitely could feel some scratchiness to it. I think improvements for the clasp would be kind of like an obvious thing. Putting quick release on there, putting a quick adjustment. You know, these are things that would be an obvious improvement to the clasp itself, but we know that those things come with the cost. I was able to get those kind of style clasps on AliExpress that had quick adjustment on the clasp, so I would think that maybe WishDoIt could look into getting that at least for their bracelet, and maybe down the road they can do the improvements for that quick release at the lugs. We get a screw down case back with a brushed sailboat engraved at the center against a bead blasted background, thin circular polishing on its borders. We get a brushed canvas outside of that with specification text to follow, circular brushing on the back of the lugs that we can see in this position. I think it was an interesting choice to go with this style case back. Most people have the regular tools to open the back of the case, and when it comes to using an NH35, I would think that there are people out there that would be interested in regulating the movement, trying to get those plus or minus tolerances a little tighter. So just look out for that if you are deciding to do that type of thing, and make sure you have the right tools for it. For keyless work function, we get a screw down crown signed with a bead blast to match the case back, easy to grip, coined edge, It has a nice ejection pop when unscrewing it. No greediness when it comes to the metal to metal when you're screwing the crown into that crown tube. And I have to say that overall, when it came to the quality of the crown and all of its functions and interacting with it, everything had a nice tolerance to it, and I found no issues with it altogether. For the side profile of the case, we get horizontal brushing along the side of the case, polished chamfers running along the top into and down the lugs, circular brushing on the top of the lugs. Now, I took a closer look into the finishing. I initially did an unboxing for this where I said that the brushing was actually pretty good. The brushing's actually pretty good, man. It's actually really, really good. It's very, 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 very decent for the price especially. But when I got a close-up feel and I'm really able to inspect it, I still think that the brushing on here is of decent quality, but it's definitely not a super refined satin finish. The bezel itself has coined edge finishing to match the crown. It's lumed with white markers, and the first 15-minute markers showcase additional markings to make it more emphasized. Now, the bezel insert was slightly misaligned when I first received the watch, and I was able to actually course correct this by pressing firmly down onto the bezel itself and then applying pressure and rotating it into the position that I desired. Now, I technically shouldn't be able to do this because the glue should be stopping it from moving altogether. I'm not sure if originally maybe they didn't put enough glue, but this is something that we see as a common theme within watches of this caliber. Normally, we take a close look at that bezel and the bezel insert because that's usually where we could have some misalignment when it comes to it. Now, the click to it itself was a healthy sound. And it was actually had a nice snap and crisp to it, but there was a slight misalignment when it came to the bezel insert. Ultimately, it doesn't take a ton of effort to make a correction. You can take that bezel insert off, you can have it either submerged in alcohol, or you can put a blow dryer to it to kind of loosen up that glue and then make that adjustment. But that may not be for you, and you may want to wait off and purchase something that you're not going to have those issues with. Protecting the dial and its contents, we get a flat sapphire crystal with AR coating. I had little to no trouble when it came to the glare to this watch, and I didn't see that AR coating being listed originally on the specifications to the, let's say, Amazon website. However, on the back of the case, it did say that, and I did have that type of feel. When I was recording the watch, I didn't struggle with the light source. I didn't struggle with glare at all, so I was actually rather impressed with the amount of coating that was placed on that AR coating. For time reading, we get bar-shaped segmented hour hand and a bar-shaped minute hand. There's a square shape at the end of the second hand, and all three hands have a polished finish. I'm so happy that they decided to not go with the typical Rolex type of feel when it comes to the watch. The Mercedes hands are just overplayed, and I was really happy to see that they decided to go with a different route and something that actually matches with the indices itself. The dial starts with a Lume white railroad style track chapter ring, black painted minute markers within it. We have Lume filled applied indices with polished borders to follow it. There's a white painted brand logo at the 12, and at the 6 o'clock position we have automatic in green and the depth rating in white just underneath it. A white date wheel aperture replaces the 3 o'clock index bordered in a green paint with a white background, all of which rests on a blue to black gradient style dial colorway. Now, I rather liked all of the elements that were placed within the watch to make this configuration for the dial. I feel like it's not a direct homage or clomage to any watch. The closest that I found it to be replicating is maybe a Rolex Deep Sea Diver, but that was just for the colorway itself. Everything else kind of has its own identity to it. I think that it was rather impressive that they at least attempt not to do a one-for-one copy, and I have to give them a little credit for doing that as well. Now, the Lume wasn't specifically noted in the actual specifications. It did note that it had Lume, but it didn't indicate which type of Lume. But obviously, when you're looking at this, we get a BGW9 fill. Now, although this is initially impressive, the hands and the chapter ring unfortunately don't last as long as the bezel insert, and it won't last throughout the entire night. However, if you're going into a temporary situation, you for sure would be okay. The watch costs $89 USD on Amazon, and because they're utilizing Amazon service, you can expect to get your watch in a very fast manner. I didn't find the watch directly on their website, which I thought was kind of weird. From what I could see, the company started off with more of like that RM kind of clomage and homage. So this seems like an attempt for them to try something new and expand and try something different. I'm all for that. And I do realize that they have changed their logos from typing out the full WishDoIt text on their dial to just WD. And I think if they're looking to expand into the Western market especially, they should do that and apply that to all of the watches moving forward. There are 6 colors to choose from for this WishDoIt dive watch, and I think that they have a pretty interesting spread when it comes to how they configured their different options. But I'm more interested to know what you guys think of the brand. How are they positioned into the market? What are your thoughts of them overall? Leave them down in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. I appreciate you guys for spending your most valuable asset, which is time, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Actually, I should mention how many there are. It feels as though there's It feels as though, do your own research, please. It's a friction flit. It's a friction flit. What the heck's wrong with me? And I recommend when you guys are making that adjustment, I try to find some. Now I had some. For the caseback itself, we get a screw down circular. For the caseback itself, we get a screw down circular. Okay, screw down circular grooves caseback. For the caseback itself, we get a screw down. The caseback itself is a screw down. The caseback itself is a screw down caseback. The caseback itself is a screw down circuit. Caseback itself is a screw down. We're getting a screw down caseback with circular grooves, kind of like that Rolex style caseback. For the caseback itself, we get a screw down. For the caseback itself, we get a circular grooved style. For the caseback itself, it's circular grooved with